This week, we are going to do the Torah portion of Behaalotecha. And again, like last week, there are many topics in this Torah portion. I'm going to sum up the Torah portion, and then I chose two, I think, beautiful ideas that I hope will resonate with you as it resonates with me in the Torah portion. So, what happens in this Torah portion? It's Behaalotecha. Behaalotecha means when you raise. And it's talking about that Aaron, the high priest, the oldest brother of Moshe and Miriam, is told to raise and light the lamps of the menorah. And it talks about the tribe of Levi, who are doing the service in the sanctuary together with the priests, the Kohanim. Then it talks about the second Passover. If you remember, there's something called Pesach Sheni, and you eat a piece of matzah on that day. Why is there a second Passover? Because remember, in the time of the Beis Hamikdash, in time of the Holy Temple, if you were impure, a man or woman was impure, where you were at a funeral, uh, different reasons you might be impure. A woman just had a baby, someone had leprosy. They couldn't bring the offering in the time for the holidays. So they came to Moshe and they said to Moshe, it's not fair, we're left out. So Moshe asked God, and God said, there'll be a second chance. I'm going to call it Pesach Sheni, the second Passover. And that describes how we're always given second chances. So if a person could not bring an offering in the desert to the tabernacle because of impurity, or let's say you couldn't travel, you were living in Israel and somebody is ill, you couldn't travel, mama got sick, papa got sick, who knows? You have second chances. And then Moshe, in a very dramatic conversation with God, says, kill me, take me alive. I can't be the leader of the Jewish people anymore. All they do is kvetch and complain. Nothing is ever good. Like Diane's joke. The waiter comes over. Diane, what does the waiter say? Is anything good?
Ladies, is anything okay?
Exactly. And how does God respond? We're going to talk about it. And the next part and the last part, which is something we're going to go into depth, is Miriam, the oldest sister of Moshe, sister of Aaron, is struck with leprosy. Why is she struck with leprosy? And we're going to discuss the whole story of what happens to Miriam, the prophetess. There's a beautiful, beautiful insight to what happens here. So let's start off with the question Rashi asks. When you tell someone to light your candles, or you want to light your Shabbos candles, it doesn't say when you raise up your light. It says light your candle. I'll tell you, go light your Shabbos candles. Go light the candles on the table. So Rashi asks, why is the terminology in the opening of the Torah portion when you raise up the light of the menorah? What does it mean to raise up the light of the menorah? How do you raise up a light? So does anybody have an insight into this?
I mean, you hold up the menorah itself, and then the lights are high.
But the menorah weighed a ton. As a
Yeah,
matter of
that's
fact, this
true.
is also very relevant that the menorah, everything made in the tabernacle, which was the mini temple that they traveled with in the desert, is called the Mishkan. Every vessel had a architectural diagram by God. Nothing, you couldn't deviate. If you ran out of wool, you couldn't use linen. If you ran out of fur, you couldn't use polyester. Whatever God said to use, that's the material you had to use. So the menorah was actually hammered out of one chunk of gold. Now, normally you look at a menorah, there's different pieces. The flowers are melted on, soldered on, the base is soldered on. Here at one chunk of gold. And Moshe didn't know how to do it. He asked God, and God showed how it's to be done. So it was very specific. Now, I don't think you could lift this menorah up. It was huge. It had 7 branches. Remember, it's not the Hanukkah menorah that has 8. It had 7 like this. The reason people have round menorahs is because Titus made a picture of the menorah depicting it round. But the real menorah, Maimonides, shows a diagram in the book of one of the books of Maimonides.
Oh,
The menorah is actually angled. Maybe I'll show a picture before the end of class. So that's a sideline. So there's a very, very beautiful insight here. The Torah portion. Go ahead, Jane. Go ahead. Say something.
Oh, maybe it elevates, raise up meaning elevate, not literally, but spiritually.
Very good. Very good. You're on the right track. So the Torah opening of the Torah portion, you might also ask, we already in Teruma, on Parshas Teruma, we already discussed the menorah and all the vessels, how to make it, how to create it, how to do it, how to use it. Why again the repetition? So we know that there's only a reason of repetition if there's something new to add. So when God says to Aaron, when you ascend, when you raise up the menorah, this is how you should do it. And Rashi says, what does this mean? It's not right. You're not using the right vocabulary. It should say when you light the flame, not when you lift up the flame. Behaalotecha means to lift up, to raise up. Rashi's saying, why is God writing the Torah when you lift up the flame? Aren't you supposed to light the flame? That's Rashi's question and our question. So actually in this passage, God is giving the Jewish people our mission statement. Because now we don't light the menorah every day in the Beis HaMikdash. There's no Beis HaMikdash. And nor do we light one in the house, right? You don't have a menorah. You wake up in the morning, part of your morning ritual. Moda'ani, okay, let me light my menorah. Because in the temple there was a menorah, in the Beis HaMikdash. It's not part of the mitzvahs here because it was only done in the Beis HaMikdash. So Rashi says two reasons. One, there was a stool that the Kohen stood on so he should be high enough to light the menorah. He got up like on a stool. But the deeper answer, Rashi says, that one must kindle the flame, I'm quoting Rashi, until the flame rises steadily on its own. In other words, there's two ways of lighting a menorah or a candle. You take a match and you hold the match to the wick and you go away. You stand there and until the wick, and you keep holding it till the light remains lit. And the second way is you light the flame and you don't step away till the flame is on independently on its own, rising up. Did it ever happen to you? You lit your Shabbos candles and it went out? By the time you finish,
sure, sure.
but you relight it, right? Like, when I light my 11, 13, once in a while, the wick doesn't catch. So even though I lit it, I go back and I relight it. So what God is telling the high priest, when you light the menorah, don't step away. Make sure the flame rises up steadily and it's a strong flame, then you could step away.
Mm.
And then Rashi said, the commentary saying from Rashi's answer, we also derive that there was a step to go up to light the menorah. That's like a secondary opinion. That's why it says rise up, ascend the flame. But now I mentioned that this is the mission statement of every Jew. There's two ways you can inspire and influence a person. You can use gentle, influential tactics where you share the beauty, the joy of Judaism, of a mitzvah, of Jewish life. And it cultivates a flame to go up. It cultivates a person, a soul to rise up, to do better. Or in the first instance, where you just light the flame, you hold your match there, the flame is lit, you step away. It's almost like the wick is dependent on the match in the first instant. In the second instance, you light the flame, and when you're sure it's rising up and it's steady and strong, you step away. This is the difference between power and influence. Power, you lord over someone. They only do it because you force it. They only do it because they're in danger, like a king, a communist leader, a monarchy. You're petrified of the king. You don't pay the taxes on the land, even though it's unusually high and crazy and almost thievery. You'll be killed. Your land will be taken away. That's power. What happens when the king dies? You think you care about it? You remember the king? Zolagain and and you're happy he's gone. There's another type of leadership of a flame, and that's positive influence. A leader, a rebbe, a rabbi, a teacher comes to you and shares with their students the beauty of the vision of happiness, of living a joyous life, of a dream, inspiring students, children, family, community, disciples. Now, what happens when that person passes away? The inspiration grows. It wasn't forced upon you. You heard and you loved it. You connected to it. You felt good about it. It enhances your life. That's the kind of light you want to give. A light that keeps burning and burning. Why? Because it wasn't forced upon you. You must do it this way or else I'll kick you out of the house, you tell your child. Then when your child is older and they go away to college or they get married or they live on their own, they go, I'm never going back home again. But what happens if a parent influences their children and teaches through love and guidance? Those children always come home because they came from a love, came from a positive. You want to continue your parents' legacy because it was taught with love and goodness and kindness. And you saw that it brought you peace in your life and happiness in your life. And there was peace at home. There was shalom bayis. So that's a difference between lighting a menorah with force or lighting a menorah with influence, where you raise it up. You would cause the flame to ascend. And that's why, like, we're still studying Rashi. Why are we still studying Rashi? He lived over 900 years ago because Rashi's commentary is so meaningful, so beautiful. It's not forced upon you. It's not thank God and good riddance to this king. That's the difference between power of leadership and influential leadership. The Rebbe was an example of influential leadership, for example. The Rebbe's yahrzeit is coming up in 2 weeks, the third day of Tammuz. And how do you see it? Did the Rebbe have power? No. No one felt threatened by the Rebbe. You don't want to listen? Don't listen. You don't want to do good stuff? Don't do it. But the Rebbe's vision and talks and teaching were so influentially beautiful and brought joy and happiness and transformed people's lives. Of course, they kept going back for more and more. Another dollar, another piece of honey cake, another being in the presence. That's influence. And influence grows even after the person passes away. You know why? Because it's a positive experience. It's the concept, there's two concepts of leadership. If I take my candle and light Margaret's candles, Debbie's candle, Diane's candle, does it take away from my light? No. The light grows. That's influence. It doesn't take away from your leadership or your teaching or being a positive influence, a parenting if you share your light. Quite the contrary. Now the light goes on and on and on and on. But if you take a hammer and bang someone on the head, you think they're going to take a hammer and want to bang someone else? That's power. You're forcing something. People don't want to be forced. Now, let's not equate power with discipline. Children, when they're little, they need a parent that disciplines. You can't let your child never go to sleep, never do their homework, never eat the proper foods. But power in a negative sense we're talking about, what the kings used to do to their constituents if they didn't follow. And that's why, do you ever think about all the horrible tyrants? No, they're gone and forgotten. But all the great Jewish leaders were still studying the Torah. We're still studying their commentaries because the influence was so powerful and meaningful. So what God is telling each and every one of us here, the way you're lighting the menorah in the Beis HaMikdash, in the Mishkan, in the tabernacle, is the way you teach and influence and share your light. You can share your light and force it on someone. This is the way you do the mitzvah. I want to hear from you another thing. Why aren't you on the Shabbos table? No Shabbos table, no movie tickets. No Shabbos table, no tickets to the Knicks. Or you put a beautiful Shabbos table and you put out beautiful foods. Which child doesn't want to eat a good meal? You don't force it. You hope they'll come. You hope you join us at dinner, Joey. We made a really delicious navel pastrami tonight. That's influence in a positive way. And then the child wants to come home, wants to be there. You will light the flame, bring it to ascend. Make sure the flame is strong and rises up in a positive way. Now, don't hold a match to the kid's head, to the student's head, to your disciple's head and say, we're going to light you. Boy, we're going to light you. Boy, you're going to light up. So this is Behaalotecha Haneros, is that if you want to influence children, spouses, family, community, students, anyone, it has to be a positive influence, one that comes from positivity, raising someone up. Then they'll accept the light. The light will prevail. If you don't raise it up, it will not prevail. The flame will peter out. Why? Because you're not there holding the match. So this is the secret to leadership, to parenting, anything, influence. Many people had power, but they never had influence. And you look at people who are influential, they don't have power over you. What are they going to do to you? Cause take away your money, they can't. There's no, the true power is through influence and the positive power. Which brings me now to the story of Moshe. So Moshe comes to God and says, I can't take it anymore. Again, the Jews are complaining they don't have meat. Take my life. Enough is enough. Which means that this is a pretty low point for Moshe. You don't hear Moshe ever saying to God, take my life. I've had enough of these troublemakers. Even when he comes down from Mount Sinai and sees the sin of the golden calf, he doesn't say, God, take my life. He says, if you're going to kill them, kill me. If you're going to kill them, take me out of your book of the Torah. Don't mention my name there. But he never says, I'm done with the Jews. Get me out of here. I'm finished. So what does God say to Moshe? God says to Moshe, you cannot carry the burden by yourself. You can't carry the burden by yourself. I'm going to give you 70 assistant leaders who will be the sages and prophets that will help you. Because you need support system. You can't be the only one doing everything. I'm going to give you a support system. So God says to Moshe, I'm going to help you out. I'm going to give you a support system. 70 elders. In addition to the 70 elders, there were 2 young prophets called Eldad and Medad, and you'll see why it's very important. And these 2 young prophets started to prophesize. You know, once you have God's message coming into your head, you have to share it. And what do they say? They prophesied that Moshe is going to die. And he's not going to go into the land of Israel. So Joshua, who's Moshe's student and will be the successor, but he doesn't know that he's going to be the successor yet, comes to Moshe and says, how are you allowing these 2 young prophets to destroy your reputation? Look what they're saying. They're saying Moshe's dying. That means we're going to take over. Right? Is that what it seems like? Get rid of them, Moshe. You can't have 2 young prophets usurping you. So Moshe says to Joshua something so powerful. He says, you're worried about my reputation? You're worried about the prophecy? All the Jews should become prophets. Everyone should be imbued with God's spirit. It's a blessing. Now, Eldad and Medad were not looking to usurp Moshe, by the way. They just shared what God said. That's what a prophet does. And it's true that 40 years later, what would happen? They would sin with the spies many years later, and they would spend another 40 years in the desert as a punishment. Remember the story? The spies come back and speak evil about Israel. We can't go there. There's giants. It's dangerous.
Yeah.
And they speak lashon hara about Israel, and God punishes that. Now, you're not going in. You're gonna spend 40 more years in the desert. So that's what Eldad made, that were prophesying the future. But no one knew it yet because they didn't even get closer to Israel. They didn't send the spies out yet. But they prophesied what would happen. So Joshua says to Moshe, how could you let these two people declare that you're going to die? So Moshe says, don't worry about my honor. I wish everyone would be a prophet. Everyone should be imbued with God's spirit. This is what he tells Joshua. Now, why is this story very important? I'll tell you why. Now let's fast forward to the next Torah portion, Korach. Remember the rebellion? Korach, the cousin of Moses and Aaron, comes. And what does he say to Moses? Why should you be the leader? Why should Aaron be the high priest? I'm also very capable. Every kulam kadoshim, we're all holy rollers. Why should I not be able to go in the temple and bring incense? And what does Moshe say to him? Does Moshe say to him the same response like to Eldad and Medad and Joshua? Everyone should be imbued. Everyone is a leader. What does Moshe say to him? Really? You think I wanted this job? God appointed me to this job. Let's see what God has to say. If God chooses you, you could take over. But if God doesn't choose you, then I am the one who's leading the Jewish people. And what happens to Korach? Who remembers? He gets swallowed up. The earth opens up, and he and his rabble-rousers are 10 feet down under. And the others who joined him, there's a terrible plague. We're going to learn more about it. So now I have to ask you a question, girls. Why, when Eldad and Medad prophesies and say to Moshe, you're going to die, and you're not going to the land of Israel, Joshua takes up an arms, and Moshe says, calm down, don't be jealous for me. All is good. All the Jews should be prophets and have God's spirit. But by Korach, Moshe says, oh, really? Let's ask God, who's going to be the leader, you or me, you or Aaron? And God answers, he gets swallowed up. The earth opens up and shows him, Korach, you're out of the picture here. I don't tolerate a revolution against my Moshe and Aaron. What happened here? Is this the same Moshe? First, he's so tolerant. And then in this Torah portion, he's like, no.
Well,
What do you think? Go ahead, Diane.
Korach wants power and Joshua wants influence.
Very, very good.
Very
Exactly.
good. Yeah.
Diane, you can take over the class.
No.
Exactly. Two types of leadership. Korach wasn't in it for the job. He didn't have altruistic intentions.
Yes.
He wanted power. He was power hungry. Eldad and Medad were just prophesizing, and they prophesized the truth. They weren't there to oust Moshe. They never said, we're going to be the new prophets. We're the new leaders. They did their job. Korach comes and wants to usurp Moshe and usurp God's will. He wants to lord. He's power hungry, like in Game of the Thrones. Remember the girl, the queen of the dinosaurs? What, not dinosaurs, dragons. At the end, she only wants power. She's not into free. In the beginning, she starts out wanting to free the slaves and throw over the dictator kings. Then she ends up being a power hungry person. She's not in it for the people. Korach wasn't in it for the people. He wasn't saying it out of the goodness of his heart. Oh, we all deserve to be leaders. We all deserve to be prophets. He gets swallowed up. And God is sending a message. Power is not leadership. Leadership is influence. That's what true leadership is. That's what true leadership is. So this is the story. So when Eldad and Medad prophesied, they're doing their job. They're not saying we want to take over, we're the new prophets. No. They're saying Moshe will die, and it does happen. It does happen. So the lighting of the menorah teaches us, how do you light a menorah? How do you ignite another person? How do you inspire? How do you educate your children, your family, your friends through raising up, not lauding? You can hold a match to the head, or you can light it, wait for the flame to raise up, and then step away, which is really the greatest gift you could give your children. A true parent gives the children the tools to become independent thinkers, and hopefully they make the right decisions. You hope that your education and your influence and your teachings and how you taught your children, they make the right decisions in their life. Or there's a parent that always mommy and daddy have to call them to tell them what to do. Mommy, what should I do? The kid is 40 years old. Okay, do this. Okay, mom, thank you. Boom. A true gift is giving someone independence to become themselves an influencer. And that's also a leader. We always spoke about leaders make leaders, and power hungry people make followers. They're not interested in leaders. That's how you know if you're in a cult. A cult brainwashes you, takes away your free will, doesn't allow you any freedom. You know you're in a cult. Well, you don't know. You've been brainwashed. Leader makes leaders, empowers leaders to be leaders. That's the gift of true leadership. Leaders
And that's the complete essence of the Rebbe.
Exactly.
So many people he influenced.
And continues. People
And
wonder,
continues.
how does the Rebbe still influence? Because that's what influences a flame that you light and you light and you light. You know, there's a beautiful insight. Before we had the calendar system, how did they know when Pesach will be? How did you know when to celebrate Rosh Hashanah? How did you know when to celebrate Shavuos? No one had calendars. So they would gauge it by the moon, right? They would send out messengers. The best din in Jerusalem would send out, rabbinical court would send out messengers. They would get up on the mountain, they would see the moon, and they would transmit the information. Now, how did everyone else in Israel know? Israel is big, right? They would go on mountain and they would light torches. Then the other guy would see the torch and light his torch. And then the other guy closer would light his torch. And then what would you see on every mountaintop in Israel? Bonfires, torches, light. That's influence. Everyone would share their torch. They would see the torch. Now we're going to light a torch. Now we're going to light a torch. Now think about that. And it always gives me chills because I think about, like, imagine in our world, if I lit a torch, then you lit a torch, and then you someone else saw your torch and lit their torch. Symbolic of peace and harmony and love. Imagine all of us would be carrying these torches. And you're not forced, you want to light your torch. That's influence. That's inspiration. And that has a ripple effect. How many times do you hear kids say, I'm never going to be like you? It's very painful. But how many kids say, I want to be just like my mother. I want to be just like my father. I want to be like the Rebbetzin. I'm talking about the Rebbe's wife, not me. The Rebbe's wife. I want to be like the Rebbe. I want to be like that. That's influence. I mentioned this, I'll mention one more time, that when people met Sarah, Abraham's wife, she was beautiful. She was smart. She was a great cook. She was a balabasta. People met Sarah. What did they say? What does it mean her challah had a special taste? When you left her presence, you said, I could be like Sarah. I could be just like her if I tried my very best. Sometimes you meet someone, they're beautiful, they're smart, they're rich, they have the best car, every bag, they're like designer, their beautiful home, their husband is handsome, the children are gorgeous. Everything is perfect seemingly in their lives. What do? You walk away feeling jealous. I could never be like her. I don't have the looks, I don't have the money, I don't have the brains, and I don't have the mansion. And my husband can barely rub two nickels together. You feel jealous, you feel envious. But Sarah, true leadership makes you want to be like them, and knowing you could be like them. If you if a student leaves your classroom, if your child leaves your home, and they go, wow, I could be great. I could be so successful. You've done your job. That's influence. But if your child leaves the house and saying, ugh, I'm a loser. My mother said I'll never amount to anything. My father said I'll never amount to anything. And my teacher told me I'm never going to amount to anything. I'm never going to amount to anything. So this Torah portion teaches us illuminate, raise up someone's light, positive influence in whichever way you can. And that's the secret to lighting a menorah. The lights have to rise up. And by the way, all the flames pointed to the center. The 7 flames all pointed to the center, which is the concept of unity, one God, and so on. So it was a beautiful miracle that happened. The Kohen had to make sure that the flames always faced to the center. They had lips, so the wick tilted to the center. It was set up in a beautiful way. Does anybody have any comments, complaints, contradictions, debates? It's a very, very agreeable class, I have to say.
No, there's something I was going to ask. Think I remember.
Go while I organize my thoughts for the next topic. You could think of what you want to say. Okay, let me get my next. This is I don't want to take.
I don't remember, but oh, go ahead, Margaret.
No, it's Jane. I don't understand. What do you mean facing the center? Center, like
so there was 7 flames, right? So
center of the menorah?
Yeah, center of the menorah. They all tilted in. So they had a lip. The oil cup had a little lip, so the wick tilted to the
center of the menorah.
Yeah,
I was
so when
thinking
they
the
lit
torches leaning to the center of that's
the
why I was
menorah.
mixing
No.
Yeah,
So instead of the wicks just facing up like a regular Shabbos candle, for example, or Hanukkah menorah, the flames tilted slightly because of the location of the wick.
Interesting.
All facing inward, so to speak.
Interesting. Got it. Thank you.
Yeah, so that's what it meant. And also, that's why it was also one piece only, honed out of one piece of gold. Why? First, it was very hard, by the way, to carve something out of one piece of gold. But the reason is that that's leadership. You can't be in different places in different pieces. When you want to be a light, you have to be one piece, one view, one opinion, the Torah opinion. You can't be wishy-washy. One day you're like this, one day you're like that, one day you change your mind, one day you're... A leader has to be strong, dedicated to Torah, mitzvahs, and God to show his or her people the right way. You can't be bribed. You can't change your mind because somebody's wealthy or somebody's not wealthy. Somebody's your friend, somebody's not your friend. Leadership means all for one and one for all. You can't be wishy-washy. So the menorah, symbolic of light and influence, had to be made out of one piece of gold. There's no disjointed pieces. Nothing is coming off. Nothing is falling off the menorah because it wasn't soldered right or glued right or it melted. That's the power of a menorah, one piece. And that's what a leader is. A leader has to be able to take a stand and keep that stance. We're not talking when you need to be kind and judgment. We're talking about morals, ethical values from the Torah, the foundation. The foundation of a house is wishy-washy. The house will eventually fall. The foundation of the house is strong, was laid down properly by the builders. That house will stay for many years to come. It's not going to rot away. It's not going to disintegrate the foundation. That's basically what it means. So now we come actually to a disturbing story where Miriam gets leprosy. Now let's put context. The Jews have gotten the Torah at Sinai. They're traveling in the desert. They're going towards the Boca Raton. The Holy Land of Israel. The Golden Medina. The destination is the land of Israel. They take apart the tabernacle, they put it back together. How do they know when to travel? There's a kifshon eish. At night there's a fire, and by day there's a cloud.
It's too late then.
Protecting them from storms and hurricanes and sandstorms. And when the cloud of glory
And there's also like half a hamburger.
stops, they know to camp. When the cloud of glory starts moving, like science fiction, they know to walk. They know to travel. So God directs them where to go, when to go. Sometimes they camped for months in one place, and sometimes it was only overnight, and sometimes it was only a few days. How did they have water? The well of Miriam, the rock, a magical rock, traveled with them and gave them fresh water. What did they eat? Manna from heaven. Every morning they woke up covered in dew was these beautiful pieces of, I don't know what they looked like, let's say a piece of dough, and it had whatever taste you wanted. But they kvetched, they wanted real fresh meat. Okay, so now they're encamped. Eldad Amaydad prophesies, and Miriam overhears her sister-in-law, talking about in-law children. Miriam hears her sister-in-law, Moshe's wife, Tzipporah, saying under her breath, now that these two young guys are prophets, and even plus the 70, woe to their wives. Because what happens when you're a prophet? Anybody know? What happens when you become a leader, a prophet? You're busy. And when God's spirit rests on you, you're not intimate with your wife at that time. 3 days before the Jews got the Torah, God gave specific instructions. There should be no intimacy between husband and wife for 3 days. After God gives the Torah to the Jewish people, God says to Moshe, tell the husbands and wives they can go back to their intimate life, except for Moshe, because Moshe at that time was communicating with God regularly. So Moshe, by following the direction of God, separated from Tzipporah, separated in intimacy. We're not talking separated, he lived in a different house. So what does Tzipporah mumble under her breath? Now these people are becoming prophets. Woe to their wives. They're not going to be intimate with their husbands. Miriam overhears, so she feels horrible. So she goes over to her older brother, Aaron, and says, we need a little mediation here. There's a problem in the marriage. Let me get my paper where she tells them. So this is what happens. Vatidaber Miriam v'Aaron b'Moshe al oidis ha'isha kushis asher lakach ki isha kshuya lakach. Miriam and Aaron now are having a conversation about their younger brother, baby brother, who's in his 80s, but okay. Miriam and Aaron spoke about Moses regarding the Cushite woman he had married, for he had married a Cushite woman. They said, has the Lord spoken only to Moshe? He also spoken to us. And the Lord heard. Hashem overhears the conversation. Look what's going on here. Look at this, how God just appears to them. Listen what God says. He's not so happy. God says to Moshe, to Aaron and Miriam, now this man Moshe is exceedingly humble, more than any person on the face of the earth. And Moshe says, and God says to Moshe, Aaron, and Miriam, go immediately to my Mishkan, to my tabernacle. And they went. And the Lord descended into a pillar of cloud and stood at the entrance of the tent. And he called out to Aaron and Miriam, and they both went out. And he says to them, God says to Aaron and Miriam, please listen to my words. If there be prophets among you, I speak to you in a dream. But Moshe, no. He is faithful throughout my house. With him I speak mouth to mouth in a vision and not in riddles. And he beholds my image. So why are you not afraid to speak against my servant Moshe? God was upset at them and he left.
Wow.
This is what happens. So now what's happening? First of all, why did, and then Miriam, who started the conversation, is afflicted with leprosy. So what happened over here? Miriam overheard Zipporah say, whoa, wow, now I'm not going to be with my husband because I'm not with my husband. How did she know? It wasn't common knowledge. Zipporah didn't reveal. Inadvertently, she mumbled it, so Miriam caught on. It's not like Zipporah went and told everyone, it's terrible. I can't be intimate with my husband. No, you see, he's a prophet. She never told anyone. She kind of mumbled it. Miriam overheard. So Miriam now is upset because she's saying, wow, my sister-in-law is going through a very hard time. And what did the prophets Eldad Amedet say? Moshe is going to die. So Miriam said, oh my gosh, my brother's going to die soon. He's not with his wife. How horrible is this going to be? I have to do something about it. He doesn't have much longer in this life. She didn't know when Moshe is going to die. They prophesied Moshe is going to die. She didn't know that it's going to be many, many years later and that he wouldn't enter into the land of Israel. She didn't know that yet. Remember, this is way before the sin of the Meraglim, of the spies, way before Moshe hits the rock because there's no water when Miriam dies. This is way before. This is after the giving of the Torah. So she's worried. Understand why she spoke about it. It's not like, guess what? Aaron, you know what's going on in their house? They're separated. They're not having intimacy. What are you, a yenta? What is it your business? But she's feeling terrible for Zipporah because she just heard that her brother is going to die and he's going to lose out on this time with his wife. So that her intentions were honorable, but she still is held to a higher standard because she's Miriam the prophetess. She's not just any lady walking down the street repeating a story. So there's consequences. When else did Miriam hear about a separation and brought them together? Who remembers the story that we discussed months ago? When was this kind of history repeats itself kind of story? When she's a little girl, her father says to her mother, what happened, Diane? Go ahead. What happened?
Did she go to Pharaoh and say you're worse than Pharaoh? Or am I getting it wrong?
No, you got it right. But who does she say you're worse than Pharaoh to? To her parents.
Her father.
And her mother.
Yeah.
So when Amram and Yocheved, the parents of Aaron, Miriam, and Moses, are living in Egypt, Amram is the leader of the Jewish people in Egypt, the Israelites. And he says, listen, there's a decree that every baby boy born will be thrown into the Nile River and killed. So he makes a decree among the Jewish nation, the Israelites, everyone should separate from your wives. Divorce your wife, you cannot be, no intimacy until this is resolved, until something positive happens. And he's separated from his own wife. Miriam is a little girl, she's a prophet. She hears the prophecy of God that God is going to save the Jewish nation. So she says to her father, you're worse than Paro. Paro decreed the boys should be killed. You're decreeing no one should be born, not girls and not boys. And her father, and she says, and God will save us. She prophesizes. Her father overhears her prophecy and he makes a new declaration. Everyone should reunite with their wives. Everyone can now be back with their wives. So he goes back to his wife and his wife gets pregnant with Moshe. So she saves the day by prophesizing. Now she's fast forward. She's thinking to herself, oh my God, this is déjà vu. What happens if Moshe has to be with Zipporah? Maybe even have another child. You don't know. She doesn't know. Now he's saying they're in their 80s, but they were living on miracles there. It's not exactly like they were living in regular times. Like I remember, this is a funny story about my mother. My mother went to the doctor. She was already in her 60s, late 60s. The doctor told her, he has to remove her female organs. It's an infection. My mother said, absolutely not. He said, why? You're not going to have any more children. She says, what do you mean? Mashiach is coming. I might just. So he laughed and he didn't. He only took out the bare minimum because why would you want to do surgery that's unnecessary? So the joke always is, my mother said, you never know. And the doctor laughed and he revisited and then he did a much smaller surgery. So how should she know? It's the crazy miracles. So she meant well. And now she's hit with leprosy. So I explained that she's held to a much higher standard. But now something spectacular happens. So now, what's the rule with leprosy? When you speak evil, when you speak negative tongue, lashon hara, it doesn't mean evil, it means negative about somebody. You get leprosy, right? Remember, we learned the rules. The house gets leprosy, the dishes get leprosy. She gets leprosy. Now, it's quite painful to have leprosy when you're in your 80s, any age. What's the rule? You have to sit out of the machane. Machane means out of the encampment. So if everyone's tents, a million tents, are on the north side of the desert, there's a special location where anyone who has leprosy is segregated from the machane, the community. And they're segregated for 7 days. After 7 days, the Kohen examines them. If the leprosy is gone, they immerse, and they're now pure, and they can rejoin the community. But now the Jews have to travel. The cloud is announcing a travel. What happens if Miriam has leprosy? So you might say, well, she stays behind. She has leprosy. She can't be part of the community. But isn't that cruel? She's in danger if she's left behind. Who's giving her food? Who's helping her? Who's taking care? Who's protecting her? But that's not the rule. The rule is that even if it's in the middle of your 7 days, let's say you only were segregated for 3 days, you travel with the community, and when they encamp, you finish out your sentence for another 4 days. So travel time is not included. So just to reiterate, everybody understands the rule? If you have leprosy and you're excommunicated into a separate part of, you're separated from the community, from the encampment, you need to stay separate for 7 days. Let's say they start traveling. They don't leave you behind. That's cruel. You go back to the traveling and you finish out your sentence when the camp stops. So what does that mean? If somebody only has leprosy 3 days, they have 4 days left. That means the whole time they're traveling, they still have leprosy. It's very painful. It means your punishment or the consequences is extended for you, right? Because you can't sit quietly for 7 days and recuperate. You did 3 days, now you're traveling, then you have to do 4 more days. It extends the pain. So what does God tell Moshe? We're not traveling. We're not traveling for 7 days till Miriam heals and comes back into the camp, and then we will travel. So over a million Jews hear an announcement. We were supposed to travel, but now we're not traveling. Why? Because Miriam, Moshe's sister, Miriam, the prophetess, is recuperating from leprosy. So the whole nation of Israel is staying put for 7 days because of Miriam. Now, why? Why not just, make it like regular? You'll do 3 days. God did not want to prolong her illness, her misery, her pain for extra days. Why? Who can figure out why? On one hand, she got punished because she did speak against Moshe. But on the other hand, God makes a tremendous statement to the people of Israel about her. Because of what she did when she was a young girl. Who remembers what she did?
Put Moshe in the basket.
Very good. That her parents put Moshe in the basket, and what does she do?
She told the princess that she needed a nursemaid or...
Very good. So from the time Moshe is put into that basket as a little baby, remember, he was 7 months born premature. 3 months later, the Egyptian police come to arrest the baby because they didn't know he was born premature. So when Yocheved and Amram see someone's coming to steal their baby away and kill him, God forbid, they quickly put him in a basket. horribly, horribly affected. But what can we do? If we keep him home, he'll be taken. Maybe there'll be a miracle. They put him in a basket into the Nile River, hoping someone will find him and save him. Miriam is so heartbroken that she follows the basket. An hour later, Batya is swimming with the princess of Paro, the daughter of Paro, and she sees the basket. She saves Moshe. Remember, her arm becomes silly putty. She stretches out her arm. She saves Moshe, and he's screaming, hysterically hungry. Miriam wanders over to the back of the palace, and she sees that the non-Jewish nursemaid, he's not nursing. She says, Batya, I know somebody. Now, Bat is not a very smart girl. She realizes this is a Jewish baby. He's not nursing because it's not a Jewish nursemaid. She quickly brings her mother, and not only does his own mother nurse him, but she raises him in his formative years because she's taking care of him.
Mm-hmm.
So the Torah says that Miriam did not allow her brother to suffer an extra minute from hunger and from pain of being, separated, not having what to eat. Now God makes an entire nation wait for her. She waited for Moshe, that he should not be hungry for even an extra minute. And now God says the entire nation will wait for Miriam. So she's not in extra pain from the leprosy.
Mm.
Which comes to show you, as Solomon says in Koheles, that the bread you cast upon the water, after many days you will find it. Like Ralph Waldo Emerson says, when you help another, you can't do it without helping yourself. Kindness will always come back. Like, those balls attached to a string to a paddle and you play it. Did you ever play it when you were a little girl?
Yes.
The ball comes right back. That's kindness. A chesed that you do, you never know, could be 80 years later. She was 5 years old at the time. Now she's 84. 80 years later, comes back, God rewards her and makes a declaration. And that's why we say every day in the prayer, the 6th remembrance, it says, remember what God did to Miriam. So everyone reads it and thinks, oh yeah, God gave her leprosy. Look what God did to her. No, what God did to Miriam, that he made it an entire nation wait so that she could heal, so she can come back and travel with everyone else healed and ready to continue. This is the message of Miriam. She didn't go save her brother because she thought, oh yeah, I'll get a reward one day. She did it. First of all, think of the pain. I forgot to mention something very important, that when her father and mother put the baby in the basket, you know what her father says to her? Look what you did. You caused us to have a baby, and now he's going to be taken.
Ay.
And imagine how she felt. But she knew she was right because she was a prophetess. She knew what God told her. She knew that God said to her, I'm going to save my people. So she knew she was right, but it didn't take away the pain of her father reprimanding her. First, her father thanks her for pointing out that he shouldn't separate and the Jewish nation should be intimate and have children. But then he reprimands her and says, look what you did. Now your brother is going to die because of you. Imagine how she felt, even though she knew that God told her he's coming to save the people. Horrible feeling when a parent says something, it really hurts you. With that pain, she goes and she could have hide in a room under the bed or run away from home and say, listen, my father doesn't appreciate me. She went to watch her brother. See, understand who she was, a very strong leader. Like, to be a Miriam, wow. Somebody criticizes you, you collapse. We can't take criticism. She told me she didn't like my new haircut. Forget it. I'm not going out till it grows out. My mother just told me she hates that color on me. I'm never wearing it again. Here is a much more serious accusation. But Torah is telling you, you do a kindness. Over 1 million people will wait for you. because of you waited for your brother. You did not let him starve for an extra minute. And he became the leader to save the Jewish nation. So I want to end off with a story about how an act of kindness, an act of goodness will always prevail. A light that you light, that flame will always continue. Going back to the concept of leadership. So there's a story of a lady, Esther, 4 children in Israel. Her husband had a sudden heart attack, left her alone in her apartment, 4 children. And she's suffering so badly. She has no money. She has to raise 4 kids alone. So one day was the most horrible experience for her. Suddenly she sees water gushing. She goes into the closet. Her water heater had exploded. Water everywhere. She said that was the straw that broke the camel's back. She sat down on the floor and just was crying hysterically. Her 9-year-old son, Levi, is in the house. He became the father, There's no father. He remembered that there was a handyman, Uri. So he found the phone number and he calls Uri, the handyman, says, can you come help? There's some kind of water gushing. So Uri comes running and he comes in the house. He sees just the water heater in the closet. He shuts off the water. He mops up the floor and he sees the situation of this widow with 4 babies and she's just beyond. He says to her, Esther, I have some good news for you. I just found out that the municipality in this city in Israel is giving out free water heaters to anybody who has an old model. And I see your model qualifies. Everything is included, labor, delivery, everything. He comes back the next day. He puts in a new water heater. She says, no charge, been met. He says, absolutely no charge. The municipality is paying for it. And life goes on. Uri is now in his 80s and he's terrible, terrible asthma. Goes to the doctor. Doctor says, Uri, it's 90 degrees in Tel Aviv. You need an air conditioner in your house. You have an air conditioner? He says, I can't afford an air conditioner. I can't even move around. How could I get an air conditioner? I don't have any money. He says, Uri, I'm telling you, it's pekuach nefesh. It's life and death for you. You have asthma, 1 attack and no air conditioning in this humidity, in this weather, you'll be gone. He said, I can't afford it. And every time the doctor tells him it's a death sentence, you have to get an air conditioner. Okay, he calls up the local appliance store. He orders the cheapest model, the cheapest of the cheapest. He said, get me the cheapest model. They said, but okay, they come to install it. It's the most expensive model. It's huge. It can air condition a whole house. He says, no. I never ordered. This is a scam. It's a switch and bait. Go take it back to the chanut. I never ordered this model. I'm not paying for it. The installer says, no. It says on the paper, paid in full. He says, no, I know you're going to bill me afterwards. I know how these people work. He says, okay, call my boss. Calls up the boss. Boss answers, says, yeah. He says, listen, I know what you're trying to do to me. I ordered the cheapest model. You gave me the most expensive model. Take it back and give me my money back. Boom. The boss calls him back. He says, I'm coming right over. We'll settle the matter. Comes home, comes there. He says, you don't understand, he tells Uri. The municipality is paying for it. There's a new thing from the municipality. They're paying for anyone who desperately needs air conditioning, and they gave you the most expensive model. He says, really? He says, really. He says, by the way, do you recognize me? He says, no. He says, I'm Levi. Remember the 9-year-old boy? And you gave my mother a hot water heater and you told her the municipality is paying for it. He says, I'm the municipality and I'm paying for your air conditioner. And he tells him, he says, all my life, I wanted to find a way to pay you back. I had no way to pay you back. I didn't know how to pay you back. And when I saw your name on the order, I told my staff, give him the biggest, best air conditioner. So what you cast will come back to you. Never underestimate the act of kindness and goodness. She saved her brother. The Jewish people stayed for her. This is the message of the Parsha. God will always make sure you did an act of kindness. You will always receive that back. This is how powerful it is. Have a wonderful, wonderful Shabbos, everybody.
Thank you, Freida.
you,
Thank you so
Freida.
much.